Hey, let's now head straight to El Paso, Texas, which is on the US-Mexico border, as thousands desperately try to make their way into America. Now, this is off the back of the expiration of Title 42. It is really confusing. I know it's confusing for people on the ground, let alone us in Australia watching. So to explain it all, I'm joined by Savanah Hernandez, who is a reporter with Talking Point USA. Savanah, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. Can you give me some kind of explanation as to what is going on? Because some of these live pictures we're seeing are just heartbreaking.
Absolutely. So one of the reasons why we did see such a large rush of migrants that crossed over into the United States before the expiration of Title 42 is because a lot of them were being told that it was actually going to be better for them to cross before that expiration, because they could continue to cross into the United States, get deported, and they could continue that cycle over and over and over again. Now that Title 42 has expired, we're dealing with Title 8 policy. And what that means is if the migrants do cross over, they could potentially be deported and face, I believe it is 5 years before they can actually try to reclaim asylum in the U.S. Also, this policy states that they have to have tried to claim asylum in some of the other countries that they travel to before making their way to the United States. But I do want to emphasize that the current administration in office really has no law and order in regards to what is going on right now. It is quite chaotic, especially with the processing, with the notice to appear papers that a lot of these migrants are receiving. Now, basically, when these migrants illegally cross into the U.S., they are getting processed and they are being given these papers, which is a notice to appear, meaning they have an immigration court date, right? We met with one migrant yesterday whose court date isn't until 2027, and this documentation does allow them to stay in the United States legally until that court date. So right now, the administration making it look like there is some semblance of law and order with these processing procedures. But to be quite honest with you, Border Patrol is completely overwhelmed. It's absolutely chaotic here in Texas and in Arizona. Multiple cities, even in northernmost cities of the United States, like in New York, have declared a state of emergency because shelters are at capacity, they're overrun, and many, U.S. congressmen declaring this an invasion.
Well, Savanah, I can tell you who I believe, and it's not an administration who has a political agenda. It's you on the ground there. You're seeing the human side of this. You just spoke about speaking to someone yesterday. Why are these people so desperate?
So a lot of people will try to say that they're seeking asylum, but if we are honest, because I have spoken to a lot of them on the ground, they are economic migrants. So they are trying to come here for work, to make money. A lot of them will come over into the United States and they'll send money back home. We're seeing a lot of Venezuelans, and I want to highlight that the demographic here is majority single adult males. So don't believe the lies that it's women and children coming across. It's a lot of men. And on the streets of El Paso, we have had thousands of them sleeping on the streets. Now, the city, one day before the expiration of Title 42, as media started, to convene to cover this crisis, the city came and they cleaned up the streets. They processed those migrants. They put them into shelters deeper into the city. So the city looks cleaned up right now. It looks like there is some semblance of, order. But what we are going to see in the next coming months, now that these migrants know that it is going to be easier for them to potentially cross, it's going to be bad for our entire country.
It's fascinating you say that about single males, because so many of the images that I'm seeing and the ones that are getting a lot of the attention are little bubbas that are just so tiny and vulnerable, and mothers and babies on the shoulders. But that's not really telling the full story, you're saying.
So, of course, the media is going to always point to, the families that are crossing, because that's what really pulls at the heartstrings. But if you do look at the majority of people coming over, like I said, I've covered the crisis in both Arizona, Texas, even in California a little bit. And oftentimes it is majority men. That isn't to say that there aren't children coming over, because, of course, that is an aspect. But another thing I want to highlight about the open border crisis right now is that it is the cartel that is profiting the most. They have made billions since Joe Biden has gotten into office, and that is on account of the human smuggling. I've spoken to Border Patrol that has found young babies as young as, a couple months old to up to 2 years old, trapped in this barbed wire because their parents will pay the cartel to smuggle them into the U.S. The cartel, once the job is done, will basically throw this child, abandon them in the desert. So this is the realities of open borders. It's absolutely horrific.
Yeah, people smugglers are the lowest breed of human, if you can even call them that, absolutely. And we've seen that firsthand here in Australia as well. Before I let you go, have we heard anything from Donald Trump on this? What's he saying?
I believe he did do a town hall last night, and he basically said, hey, you know what, if I was in office, the border would look very different. We have a lot of candidates right now that are running for president that are really campaigning on cleaning this up, because this is not a left or right issue right now. We have Democratic politicians and Republican politicians equally upset because, again, whether you're a blue or red city, states or cities are being overrun. States are being overrun.
Savanah Hernandez, we appreciate so much. I know it's near 1 a.m. over there at the moment. So thank you so much again for joining us and keeping us up to date, and take care of yourself.
Thank you.